Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shill test, search, peasants, vassals, minions. I'm a useful idiot, and today I want to talk about the Ukraine. Again, I want to go back to that issue because in my last video about the Ukraine, I ended up talking more about the historical context of Ukrainian longings to be part of the European community. And some commenters and, of course, most of the press out there is talking about other issues, and one of those issues is the intervention of outsiders in the Ukrainian uprising that's going on right now, and the manipulation of this event. And certainly that is a part of it, but I'm sticking to my guns about whether this is a grassroots or movement or whether it's an intervention. Certainly there are characteristics of an intervention. There's agent provocateurs, there's money and support being funneled in from outside players, including from the United States, including from Russia, and including from the Eurozone. And that's mostly the big difference between now and, say, the last Orange Revolution of 2004 in the Ukraine. Now we see the Eurozone as one of the biggest meddlers in these events in Ukraine, whereas during the 2004 Orange Revolution, it was clearly U.S. donors and U.S. backers that were fomenting change in the Ukraine at that point. And it was painfully obvious. I mean, Viktor Yushchenko, the opposition candidate, was supported by the IMF and was completely supportive of IMF loans and joining NATO at some point. And he had direct connections because he'd worked at the U.S. State Department, he'd worked at the U.S. Treasury Department, he worked in the Reagan White House, and had direct connections with the IMF. So the involvement of the United States in that Ukrainian uprising in 2004 is extremely apparent. And this is done through what's characterized as soft power, and that's a good term to bring up in this case with Ukraine, because there's coercion, bribery, and subversion going on, and a lot of non-governmental agencies involved that basically co-opt the popular uprising in the Ukraine. So it's a grassroots movement that feeds on itself and builds up, but there's certainly outside influences fanning the flames. And this is always true. The United States, of course, does that within the United States itself, too, to the domestic population. So let's look at some of the events going on in Ukraine right now. So we have the Prime Minister, Azarov, resigns, and prisoners released. And they're revoking the demonstration laws, and now we have the president is off, apparently sick, and is stepping outside of the scene right now. And this is a very interesting development. We should keep our eyes on this because things could move rapidly, and these concessions will only encourage the Ukrainian opposition. So previously I said that perhaps this may all just blow over and things get back to normal, which is still within the realm of possibility. But these recent developments show that that there is a potential for a revolution and somewhat a potential for a civil war, because the eastern part of the country and the western part of the country are so at odds over these issues. And that would certainly be an unfortunate development. But that does fit in with my overall theory that we're moving towards fracturing and that fragmentation, and that a lot of larger countries will break down into smaller components necessarily as we move forward. So as the umbrella organization, the so-called world governance or New World Order, wants to build a sphere of influence that includes the entire globe and breaks down sovereignty, at the same time we're going to have this fragmentation where a lot of larger countries will fragment into smaller components. But these events in Ukraine are very, very important, because this has to do with the global balance of power. Ukraine has been a traditional part of the Russian heartland, a part of the Russian sphere of influence, and to have that country either break up or swing to the European sphere would severely change the balance of power. Like I mentioned before, Russia has a Black Sea fleet, and its access to the Black Sea and the Mediterranean is based on their presence in Sevastopol, and they are leasing this port from Ukraine right now. But the fact that the military has stayed neutral in this situation is very telling as well. And should the military get involved, it will be interesting to see which direction they end up. But at this point, it's interesting to see that the United States has sent John Kerry over there, and interesting that he has the audacity and hypocrisy to warn other countries not to intervene in the Ukraine when the United States has been going there actively and fomenting this opposition. And then we have Russia, who I think Russia would like to see the Ukraine stay within their sphere of influence, and I don't really think they are concerned with what form of government really ends up being in Ukraine. I think they'd be fine with a democracy, although that's not really the issue here overall. I don't think Russia will get involved any more directly than they are now, should things escalate. So I think Ukraine, other than the fact that the United States is meddling there, I think the Ukraine is on their own. And one of the other interesting aspects of this whole Ukrainian uprising right now, and this is a story that's surfaced on its own and is worthy of closer attention, is the fact that they can now pinpoint you using your cell phones in this Ukrainian revolution. And I would suggest that if the Ukrainian government has this capability, then certainly the United States has this capability, and most other countries would have this capability. But they can essentially figure out that you are at this, and they sent out a mass message to cell phones in the zones of opposition and uprising, and they get a message that says, quote, "Dear subscriber, you are registered as a participant in a mass riot," unquote. So that's very chilling indeed, that we have this technology that now they can trace your presence in this uprising and send you a message on your phone, and also obviously correlate it with all the information that surveillance societies already collected on you and your profile. So this is a very important tool for world governments. This is a very important tool for the police surveillance state, and something that is quite a revelation out of this Ukrainian uprising. But that said, there doesn't seem to be any proof per se of outside interference. There's always bad actors that take advantage of this situation, and that's what we have. We have right-wing extremist groups taking advantage of the situation. We have nationalist uprising that will take a life of its own, and then we have agent provocateurs and instigators and organizers, coercion, bribery, surreptitious involvement from all interested parties, including the Eurozone, Germany, Russia, the United States, and anyone else. So, but like I say, I stand by my view now that this is really turning into a Ukrainian grassroots movement, and they are hanging in there now. There's been a lot of concessions, which will only encourage the opposition, and this could lead to some more dramatic events. So I take back my previous statement that things may just go back to normal. It doesn't appear to be the case anymore. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.